In this video, I want to cover some more advanced and optional concepts in Redux. There are two things that I'm going to cover in this video. The first, remember we talked about the connect function. I'm going to talk about the second argument that goes inside the connect function. The second thing I'm going to do after that is kind of refactor my application, especially the folder structure over here. Right now, the code is scattered. My app has a lot of the Redux code, and I'm going to remove that and create a separate folder where I'm going to host my Redux code. Let's look at the first thing that I mentioned. The connect function over here is used to connect our component to Redux. Connect, the arguments in the connect are all optional. The maximum arguments are 4. The first argument we looked at was map state to props. What it does is it basically converts the state and passes it as a prop. The second argument that is typically used is called map dispatch to props. Let me write that function. The same thing, it is going to be a function as well. I'm going to write the function over here. I'll say const map dispatch to props. This is going to take an argument, and we'll talk about what argument do I need to pass in over here. So again, same thing such as map state to props. This is the standard name, but you can call it anything you want. And this is going to be the second argument that goes inside your connect function. Now type this over here. Just like your map state to props, this should give you a hint what it is saying. It is saying that it is going to convert the dispatch or pass the dispatch function as props. Okay, this is what this function does. So what is the need for this one? Basically, what it does is we are getting dispatch function that is coming from Redux. We can actually convert the dispatch into our custom functions and pass that in instead of having these extra functions over here. Let's see what I'm talking about. The first thing is it says map dispatch to props, just like map state to props was getting a state as an argument or a parameter. I'm going to get dispatch, the function dispatch, as a parameter. So I'm going to create it over here as well. Okay, now map state to props function should return functions. So it is going to return function or functions. It's up to you. Okay, now in this case, what are we going to return? Remember, what does dispatch do? Dispatch basically is responsible for firing events or firing actions. Okay, that's what this is going to do. So in our case, we have two actions. We have increment and we have decrement. So I'm going to return two functions. I'm going to call it increment. Okay, and my second is going to be decrement. Now remember, just like your map state to props function, the properties that I'm mentioning over here, these are the ones that are going to be received as properties. So since I mentioned increment and decrement, if I go back up over here, I'm going to receive increment and decrement over here. Okay, because I'm converting this to these two properties, which are going to be passed into this component as increment and decrement. Now, what does increment do? Increment is going to dispatch an action. So increment is going to be a function. I'm going to use the arrow function syntax. And what is it going to do? It is going to dispatch the action, which is going to be, an action is just an object, just like over here. And I'm going to copy this so that I don't make a typo. This is the action that is going to get fired. Same thing when it comes to increment. Increment is decrement. Decrement is going to be a function, and I want it to fire an action, which is going to be decrement. I'm going to format this. Looks like I'm missing something. Maybe I'm trying to look. Oh, my bad. These are going to be curly braces. Just like your state, this is going to be an object. That was the issue. Go ahead and format this. Okay, now it looks better. So map dispatch to props is going to return an object, just like your map state to props. This object is going to have two functions, increment and decrement. Now in our counter, instead of dispatch, I'm going to get two properties, two props, increment and decrement. And what are these? These are the functions that are going to get fired when you want to handle or handle increment and handle decrement. So what is the advantage of this now? When my on-click event fires, instead of using handle increment, I'm going to simply say increment, which is going to get passed from property, from the props, and I'm going to say decrement over here. This basically takes the need of these two custom functions of making us creating these two custom functions. We don't need this anymore. The dispatch to map dispatch to props function over here is going to take care of that. Okay, so these are some helper functions that come with Redux that help us reduce some of the code in our application. Again, it's a little bit advanced, but it's good to understand the second argument that goes inside the connect function as well. The second argument is called map dispatch to props. It is basically converting the dispatch function into props and then send those props to your component. In this case, what we did, we created an object. We are returning an object with two functions. What happens if increment gets called? It is going to dispatch increment. When decrement gets called, it is going to dispatch a decrement action. Okay, now I don't need to have a handle function events over here. All I have to do is call these properties, which are going to in turn call these and fire these events. Now, functionality wise, nothing should have changed. So let's go ahead and check our application. We'll go ahead and run this application. You will see the counter is going to still come back up. Okay. In the previous, you saw another counter over here. That was just something that I was trying. We'll talk about that later as well. But for now, this is my application. So going back over here, it works incrementing and decrementing. So this is what map dispatch to props does.